Why are you doing all these strange things? Sometimes you ask me to do impossible things.
You and I made an agreement. You wouldn't question my actions, you wouldn't doubt my choices. So now, you go your way, and I'll go mine.
All right, I'm sorry. I won't ask again.
What is the meaning of all this, boy?
Patience, old man. All will be revealed in due time.
He thought the young man was a fool until his daughter revealed the truth. Once upon a time, in a small town, a young man named Asif arrived at an inn. He had traveled a long distance and hadn't even completed half his journey when night fell. He stayed in a small inn in this town where he met an old man named Usman, who by coincidence was going to the same village that was Asif's destination. In ancient times, people traveled long distances on foot and by bullock carts. By chance, Asif and Usman ended up eating together. During their conversation, the old man discovered that Asif was also going to the same village as him. Asif was going to meet a dear relative. The old man said, "My boy, you're also going to Roshanpur?" "I live in Roshanpur. Whose house are you going to?" Asif replied that he was going to the house of a man named Ahmad in his village. The old man was very happy and said, "My boy, the journey is still very long and we both have to travel on foot. Why don't we complete this journey together?" Asif was pleased to hear this and said, "Elder, since we are to journey together and our destination is the same, we should travel together." They spent that night in pleasant conversation and then fell asleep. The next day, they had their breakfast and then bought some food and drink from the market before starting their journey. Before setting off, Asif said, "Elder, please listen to me." The old man, surprised, asked, "What is it, my boy?" Asif said, "Elder, if you wish to be my traveling companion, I have one condition." The old man looked at him in surprise and asked, "What kind of condition?" Asif smiled and said, "During the journey, whatever I do, whatever actions I do, you will not ask me any questions about it. You will neither show surprise nor curiosity." The old man was very surprised to hear Asif's words. After a few moments of silence, he said, "All right, young man, but if..." Asif interrupted, "No buts, elder. If you agree to my condition, I will be your companion only on this condition." The old man agreed. They were traveling on foot through the forest when, after some time, it became noon and they felt very tired from walking. Both decided to sit under a dense, shady tree to rest from their journey. They found a dense tree and sat under it. Both were also feeling very hungry. They took out their food. The elder said, "Come on, my boy, let's start eating by reciting Bismillah." Asif said, "Elder, wait a moment." "What happened?" the old man asked. Asif said, "Just wait." With that, the young man took out an umbrella from his belongings and opened it. He held the umbrella in his left hand and began eating with his right. The old man watched Asif, bewildered, wondering what kind of foolish person he was. "We are sitting under this dense and shady tree, yet this madman has opened an umbrella." The old man was about to ask Asif, "Young man, we are sitting under this dense and shady tree, so why did you open the umbrella?" when he suddenly remembered his condition. However, reluctantly, shaking his head, he opened his mouth and exclaimed, "My boy, we are sitting under a shady tree, so what's the point of opening an umbrella?" Asif looked at the elder and said, "Elder, you promised me that during the journey, you would not ask me any questions of any kind. Therefore, our paths are now separate." Seeing Asif upset, the old man immediately said, Oh, young man, I made a mistake. You don't have to answer this, but now I promise I won't ask any more questions." Asif stared at him and then silently continued eating. The old man also started eating. Asif continued to hold the umbrella in his left hand and ate with his right. When they both finished eating, they thanked God, closed the umbrella, and put it back in their belongings. They rested for a while under that tree and then continued their journey. As they walked, evening fell. The darkness of night slowly began to spread. They couldn't see the path ahead, and at night, any animal, snake, or scorpion could attack them. So, they decided to stop there and spend the night at that spot. The poor old Usman was exhausted from walking. Half dead, he sat under a tree and leaned against its trunk. "Come on, Asif, you also lean against this trunk and sit down. let's get some sleep here for a while. Once the fatigue is gone, we'll start our journey again." But Asif said, "No, old man, not like this." The old man looked at him in surprise. "Then how, young man?" Asif said, "We need to find a tree whose trunk is wide enough for both of us to lie down comfortably and whose branch is strong enough to bear our weight. We can spend the night there comfortably." The old man was very surprised. He was about to ask him, "My boy, why specifically on a tree?" But he remained silent. Asif made the old man sit under a tree and then went off in search of a tree where they could both comfortably spend the night. The old man was inwardly fuming, thinking, "What a foolish person he is. Are we monkeys that we should climb a tree to sleep?" But he remained silent. Asif wandered around for a long time, searching for a tree, and finally found a strong, sturdy tree where they could both comfortably spend the night. "Come on, old man, let's climb this tree," the old man said in a somewhat harsh tone. "Oh, young man, you are amazing. You are a young man, so you can easily climb this tree, but I am old and frail. It's very difficult for me to climb this tree." Asif said, "Old man, I will help you." The old man said, "Oh, what's the need to climb this tree? You can spend the night on the tree, and I'll lie down somewhere below." The old man said this with annoyance. Asif said, "Old man, you promised me that during the journey, you would not argue with me about anything and would not ask me any questions about anything. Come on, I will help you climb the tree." With that, Asif moved forward. The old man understood that this young man was very stubborn and would not listen to him. Reluctantly, the old man agreed. Asif helped the old man climb the large tree he had chosen for them to spend the night. The old man was angry inside, but remained silent. After helping the old man climb the tree, Asif also climbed the same tree and sat down. Both leaned against the trunk of the tree. The night slowly passed. The old man quickly fell asleep, but Asif slept alertly. His eyes would open at the slightest sound. Once or twice, he even looked down from the tree. In this way, he would sometimes sleep and sometimes wake up. Then, slowly, the night passed. When morning light appeared, Asif woke up and then woke the old man as well. They climbed down from the tree. Asif also helped the old man descend. Sitting below, they ate the remaining bread from the previous day and then set off on their journey. After walking for a long time, they came across a river. Upon reaching the river, Asif began to search for a place where the river water was narrow and they could easily cross it. After walking a short distance, he found a spot where the river was a little narrower. "Come on, old man. Now we have to cross this river on foot, as there is no bridge here." "All right, young man, I'm ready," the old man quickly agreed. Asif quickly stepped forward. The old man took off both his shoes and tucked them under his arm, then followed Asif. Asif, with his new shoes on, entered the river. The old man watched in astonishment. "Oh, what a foolish man this is. He'll ruin his new shoes by getting them wet." However, keeping his promise, he didn't ask any questions, but he felt regret in his heart that he had encountered such an unwise and foolish young man. The journey is continuing, but it's creating discomfort. After crossing the river, the old man immediately took out his shoes from under his arm and put them on. He looked pointedly at Asif's wet shoes, but Asif kept moving forward, completely unconcerned about his shoes being ruined. As they walked, they kept getting closer to their destination, and now their destination was very near. It was approaching noon, and they were feeling hungry, but Asif showed no signs of stopping. He said, "Old man, quicken your pace. Our journey is about to end." After a short while, they reached their village. Old man Usman said to the young Asif, "Come son, come to my house. I have a daughter at home who cooks very well. Today, you are my guest." The old man said this formally. The young man, who was standing there to say goodbye, said, "Old man, I would like to take your leave. I need to meet my relative as soon as possible. I won't stay at his house either. If I have to stay here, I'll spend the night in some small inn." The old man, who was already frustrated and angry with the young man, said, "All right, young man, as you wish. Now we part ways. It was a good journey." As the old man began to leave for his home after taking leave, Asif said, "Old man, before you go, Please listen to me, the old man asked. What is it? Asif said. When you enter your house, be sure to knock on the door and clear your throat a little so that the family members are aware of your arrival. The old man said, All right, young man, I'll keep your advice in mind. You are wise. Now permit me to leave. The old man laughed inwardly, thinking, What a strange and crazy man. I'm going to my own house. What's the need for me to knock or clear my throat at my own house? Anyway, he wanted to get rid of the young man as soon as possible. He bid Asif farewell and walked towards his house, and Asif went on his way. As the old man walked towards his house, he suddenly remembered the young man's words. Before entering the house, be sure to knock on the door and clear your throat a little to let your family know of your arrival. The old man's young daughter, Nargis, lived in his house. Remembering the young man's words, he chuckled inwardly. But then, for some unknown reason, he knocked loudly on the door and then cleared his throat. After a short while, the door opened. His daughter, Nargis Banu, opened the door. Oh, daughter, why did it take you so long to open the door? He asked, responding to his daughter's greeting. Father, I was bathing. Your knocking and clearing your throat let me know you had arrived. The old man entered and said, Daughter, my mind is a bit messed up today. Why, father? Is everything all right? His daughter asked, immediately spreading a cot in the courtyard. Oh, daughter, what can I say? I met a strange young man on the way, and he became my traveling companion. The old man then narrated the entire story to his daughter from beginning to end. The old man's daughter, Nargis Banu, listened with great interest to her father's account of the young man. She found the young man's actions very sensible. Nargis Banu was a very clever and intelligent girl. After hearing her father's entire story, she asked, Father, where did that young man go? The old man said that he went to a relative's house, but was very self-respecting, saying that if he had to spend the night, he would stay in an inn, but not at a relative's house. The girl pondered and said, Father, if I say something, you won't mind, will you? The old man laughed and said, No, my daughter, say it. Why would I mind? I know you are very wise. The girl said, Father, you first said that you sat under a tree at noon during your journey and started eating under that dense, shady tree. Despite so much shade, that young man opened an umbrella. The old man said, Yes, daughter, wasn't that foolish? We were sitting under a dense, shady tree. So what was the point of opening an umbrella there? The girl said, Father, that was not foolishness but wisdom. You were eating Allah's sustenance under the tree. And you know that there are many birds sitting on trees. If any bird had dropped its droppings on your food would have been wasted, or your clothes would have been ruined. That's why the young man had opened the umbrella. The old man was astonished to hear this. Yes, daughter, you have made a very good point. But look, we could have spent the night sitting under a tree, couldn't we? But he made a weak old man like me climb up the tree. The daughter said, Father, I repeat, he is not foolish but wise. Do you know that you were traveling in a dangerous forest, which has very fierce and dangerous animals? When you were sleeping at night, any predator could have attacked you and killed you. That's why the young man acted wisely and preferred to spend the night on the tree. The old man was surprised to hear this as well. Then the old man said, But daughter, you will have to admit that I have never seen such a foolish person in my life. He ruined his new shoes by putting them in the water, even though we were crossing the river on foot. Now, my daughter, we cannot call this wisdom. The girl, listening to her father, said, Father, that too is wisdom. New shoes are not more valuable than a person's life. That's why the young man did not take off his shoes. Hearing his daughter's words, the old man fell into thought and said, Indeed, that young man was very wise. Nargis Banu said, Yes, father. Please invite him to dinner at our house tonight. The old man said, But daughter, how do I know if he is still at Ahmad's house or has already left? The girl said, Father, he said that he would spend the night in an inn. You can go in the morning and invite him for dinner. See, he is a guest in our village. You must invite him for dinner. The old man, who was already convinced of his daughter Nargis Banu's wisdom, smiled upon hearing his daughter's words and said, Certainly, daughter. I will definitely go to the inn in the morning and I will definitely invite that young man for dinner tomorrow evening. I think tomorrow evening's dinner will be fine." "Yes, father, absolutely." Early in the morning, the old man walked towards the inn. There was only one old, small inn in this village, and the old man had no difficulty finding the young man. The young man was getting ready to go to a relative's house. When the old man met the young man was very happy, and then the old man invited the young man to his house for dinner that night. The young man thanked him and apologized, but the old man said, "Son, this is not my wish, but my daughter's wish that you are our guest in our village, and therefore you must visit our house once, and then you can spend the night at the inn, and then return to your home in the morning." Reluctantly, the young man had to accept the old man's offer. The old man happily returned home and told his daughter, Nargis Banu, that the young man had accepted her invitation. The daughter began to prepare dinner for the evening. She made a good curry and rotis. At night, the young man arrived at their house. The old man opened the door and respectfully invited him inside, seating him in the guest room, and then drawing the curtain. The old man's house also had an emotional servant named Babar. The old man Usman and the young man talked about various topics, but the old man did not mention his conversation with his daughter in any way. But inwardly, he was convinced of the young man's wisdom and was also somewhat embarrassed. When the food was ready, Nargis Banu called the servant Babar. She handed him the bread and curry and told him, "When you take this food to the young man, recite these few verses to him. The 14th night of the moon and the stars are dense in the sky, standing at the four corners of the mosque." The servant memorized the verses. On the way, the delicious smell of the food enticed the servant. He secretly took out and ate one piece of meat after another, and also took a piece of bread from each roti. Then he placed the food in front of the guest and recited Nargis Banu's verses. The 14th night of the moon and the stars are dense in the sky, standing at the four corners of the mosque. When the young man heard these verses, he looked closely at the food platter. He looked at the curry, counted the rotis, and said to the servant, "Go tell your mistress, the 14th night of the moon, and there's hardly a star in the sky, four corners of the mosque and one of them is missing." The servant memorized the verses and went back and recited them to his mistress, Nargis Banu. Nargis Banu was very intelligent and clever. After hearing the entire verse, she scolded the servant. "Tell me the truth, did you take out pieces of meat from the curry, and did you take a piece of bread from each roti?" Hearing this, the servant's face turned pale. He began to tremble and wondered how his mistress knew. When the young man had finished his meal and left, Nargis Banu thoroughly scolded the servant in front of her father and dismissed him from his job as punishment for his theft. Then she said to her father, "Father, through those verses, I gave the young man the message that there are four roti and the curry is full of meat. But in response, the young man told me that one roti is missing and the pieces of meat are also gone from the curry. That's how I found out about the servant's theft, and that's why I dismissed him from his job." The old man was overjoyed by his daughter's wisdom and the young man's intelligence, thinking, "My daughter, I think just as you are wise, that young man is also intelligent." The girl bowed her head in shyness. The old man said, "Daughter, I don't think there can be a more intelligent and better boy for you. If you agree to this, should I talk to that boy?" Nargis shyly said to her father, "Father, as you wish." The old man said, "That young man will be leaving from here today." The old man immediately ran to the inn and said to the young man, "Young man, I have only one daughter. Everything I have belongs to her. I am convinced of your good intentions, intelligence, wisdom, and honesty. If you don't mind, may I tell you what's in my heart? I wish you to marry with my daughter and make you my son-in-law. If you don't mind, bring your parents to my house." The young man, who was already impressed by Nargis Banu's delicious food and intelligence, immediately agreed and promised the elder that he would definitely bring his parents after reaching his home. And then, a few days later, as promised, the young man brought his parents to Nargis Banu's house. The wedding discussions and arrangements were finalized, and then, after a few days, the girl was grandly married to that intelligent young man. And then, both, full of wisdom and understanding, began to live their lives happily. If you enjoyed this story, please like it to support us. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback means a lot to us.